So just a brief introduction. I just wanted to mention about current state of play on the demand front for lithium. So with current prices, there's a lot of pressure for developers and particularly on the funding phase for developing projects. But our view, Benchmark's view on demand, is that demand will continue to remain strong. On the top left chart, we can see the EV sales that we are estimating for the forecasted period we cover until up to 2040, and the penetration rate in a red line. And we can see that demand from EVs will continue to be strong, even though sales, in particular in 2024, were a bit lower than previously anticipated. This follows mainly macroeconomic trends and, of course, the subsidies in different, the presence or absence of subsidies in different geographies benefited or put a negative mark on sales in the different regions. And EV sales represents today around 77% of the battery demand when we speak about in megawatt per hour basis, and around 85% of total battery demand for lithium. So, of course, what happens with EVs is the driver, particular of demand, the main driver of demand. We had a fantastic growth on ESS demand this year. We expect it to continue being a robust part of the demand, but of course, EVs are the main driver. On battery demand as well, there's a lot of influence on what's happening with the cathode chemistry evolution, as we can see on the bottom left chart. And we are expecting today, we're expecting about almost half of the demand is coming from LFP, and this representation or share from LFP will continue 10 years from now in 2034. And we do expect a growth in NCM demand. And that's particularly relevant to understand what kind of lithium chemicals are needed for the different markets. And on the bottom right chart, I just wanted to mention that all the EV demand, portable CSS, and industrial demand is setting for a robust growth in lithium demand for the future. I don't recall any other market with the opportunities that lithium has, with the volume as well, in which we are estimating at least until 2040 a compounded annual growth rate of 2 digits, around 10%. So the demand will continue to drive or to be robust, and we need more lithium. Next, Amelia, please. Just to mention a bit on, put a bit of context on the supply side. On the left chart, we can see that global lithium supply is set to become more diversified. The main producers, lithium producers, Australia, Chile, and China, are continuing to establish a certain degree of dominance in the market, but the share of production from these three countries is diminishing on the global scale. And we have new participants as Argentina, Zimbabwe, and the US as well, that are coming into production, in growing production, and they are taking a bigger share on the lithium supply side. On the right, we can see as well the lithium chemical supply, and we can see how it's getting diversified, or how we expect to be more diversified in the future. 2024, we're estimating that China controls around 66% of the global lithium chemical supply, but this will lower to around 52% in 2030. And that means as well on the lithium mine supply that new participants, particularly the US, for example, are becoming more important in the chemical supply as well, and Europe as well. On the bottom right chart, we can see our projected demand for lithium carbonate and hydroxide, and we can see there's a disconnect in the future we are forecasting a disconnect, and we estimate the supply of carbonate will be higher than that of hydroxide. And that's particularly important to know, or to note, because the demand from hydroxide on a regional level will vary considerably. It varies quite a lot in the different geographies. So, for example, we are forecasting that Europe and North America will demand more hydroxide than Asia. So it's important to understand this vision as well. Next, please. So with robust supply and demand, as I mentioned, but as a higher rhythm of demand and some supply curtailments that we have seen this year in Australia and China, for example, we are forecasting that the deficit will come 2 years earlier than we previously anticipated at the beginning of this year. And the deficit will arrive in 2028, with 2027 being a balanced market. So this, of course, has some impact on prices. Even though we estimate 2024, 2025, and part of 2026, prices will remain subdued because of the oversupply market and some other variables. We are estimating prices will start ramping up or increasing from the second half of 2026, peaking around 2028. Next, please. And the geographical distribution of supply, it's quite important to understand. That's why we've created this map, which shows the mine supply and the chemical supply for the different regions. And I want us to pay special attention to North America and Europe, which are the main topic for the day. North America is expected to grow in both chemical capacity and mine capacity considerably in the next 10 years. We've heard several announcements this year, in particular from the Department of Energy, and a lot of interest on developing the lithium supply chain in the country and the region. And we expect that as well from support from the certain policies that have been applied in North America, supply will grow considerably in the next 10 years. And in Europe, mine supply will, in our vision at least, will grow on a more limited scale, but capacity for chemical supply or chemical production will grow considerably. And that means that the mine supply needed to feed this chemical supply will have to be sourced from elsewhere. And I think Andre will share some of those details on how AMG Lithium, for example, source part of their production from or mine production from Brazil. But that will happen as well on different projects in Europe in particular. Next, please. And I just wanted to highlight the state of play of the US and then Europe. And as we can see, on the top left chart, there's regional, we can see online regional demand and mine supply, and there's a deficit of mine supply compared to the lithium demanded by the US. And this as well needs to be sourced from elsewhere. But in North America even though mine supply is expected to grow considerably, there are certain challenges regarding the type of deposit that are being developed in the country. And most of the production will come from unconventional sources, as clay or brines from oil field, depending on, for example, DLE technology or geothermal sources. So there are some challenges that we cannot accurately forecast on how it will impact in the future. It needs certain technological advancement and, of course, funding. And I think current prices are playing an important part on the development of projects, particularly unconventional sources, and that's an important challenge to address today. And our policy team has prepared a very informative chart that we can see on the bottom. And we can see that even with all the policies have been established in the US supporting local and friendly sourced lithium or other chemicals and metals for the energy needed for the energy transition, we are still seeing that there are some gaps for that the US needs in order to control the supply chain in the region. And even though lithium, there's been a lot of interest in lithium and developments in lithium in the region, there's still a supply gap of around 16% for lithium, and more critical for other metals as cobalt, graphite, etc. Next, please. In Europe, there's a more critical view or image. So as we can see in the chart of the left, the mine supply from the region it's drastically different from the regional demand. And there are several reasons behind this trend. There are some very important and interesting deposits in the region, but permitting delays, environmental concerns, community concerns will mean that the source of lithium for Europe region it's mostly from overseas sources. And as we can see on the chart on the right, and Jadar, which is one of the most important deposits in Europe, which is still not producing. There are some delays in order to get this project running. Will only represent a small fraction of all the lithium that Europe needs, and this is quite an important thing to note. And yeah, I just wanted to finish with this. Next, Media. So I will present Andre Magdalani today, and well, he will run us through the presentation from AMG Lithium. Thank you. Andre, sorry, you are on mute.
Sorry, here we go. Sorry. Thanks, Federico, for the introduction, and thanks for Benchmark having us here to give me the opportunity also to present to you the status where we currently are. I'm talking about AMG Lithium, the first lithium hub here in Europe. So we want to start backwards integrating Europe. We would like to make lithium produced here in Europe available here in Europe. So if we look at, next please. If we look at the targets that the European Union set itself for the Green Deal, within the Green Deal, we're talking about Europe producing up to 15 million EVs per year. I've seen different figures. I've got 12 million here. I've heard 8 million. They are changing. However much it is, you will require roughly 100,000 tons of lithium hydroxide for 2.3 million cars. As of today, so if we wanted to have 12 million cars, we would need an equivalent of roughly 500,000 tons of lithium hydroxide. If you convert it to carbonate, it's a little bit different number. It's just 10% more. So as of today, none of this is mined, converted, processed, or refined in Europe. And we've got the industry waiting for it. I must admit, I mean, we're building the industry the other way around. Normally, you have resources, then you discover applications, then you modernize, etc. We're doing it the other way around. We have the automotive industry, which is very strong in Europe, and which has to change from ICEs to EVs, and so we're taking it upstream instead of having something upstream going downstream. So EVs are there, batteries are in Europe. Battery manufacturers, CAM manufacturers are starting, and this is where it stops. And we would like to take it one step back. Next, please, Amelia. So this is, in a nutshell, what AMG plans to do. On the left side, you see our resources. Our backwards integration, our backbone is the lithium mine we have in Brazil, in Mibra. We have just increased the capacity from 90 to 130,000 tons of spodumene concentrate. Now, this is just enough to feed our first module. We intend to build many modules, each designed to produce 20,000 tons of lithium hydroxide battery grade. But this is the starting point. We have the mine in Brazil, which is already operating. It's been operating since 45 because it was initially a tin and tantalum mine. Now it's a multi-mineral mine where spodumene plays the major role. Next thing, we are able to take technical grade hydroxide from the market, be it tech grade, be it out of spec battery grade, be it at one day tech grade from black mass from recyclers. And next thing would be, we're already talking for the future, for next modules, we're talking with a lot of junior miners globally to secure additional raw materials. AMG is willing to co-invest and to support. We have people on board to support these processes too, to secure material for the, let's say, for the future modules. And at some point, we would be hopefully sooner than later taking, as I mentioned, technical grade lithium hydroxide from recyclers and turn it back into battery grade lithium hydroxide. We intend to build many modules. We have just started, or we're in the middle of commissioning our first module in Bitterfeld, which is 140 kilometers south of Berlin. We had our grand opening a month ago, and we have a piece of land where we can build up to 5 modules. So this is the first module to turn technical grade hydroxide into battery grade hydroxide. With the next module, we are likely to design it such that it will convert technical grade carbonate into battery grade hydroxide, because this opens the door for raw materials from South America, Latin America, etc. And with each other module, we will design differently so that we are very flexible in terms of feedstock. And if at some point, let's say the recyclers decide it's going to be hydroxide carbonate, we can. If they come up with lithium sulfate, we may build a module in future. It's not going to be module 2, but maybe module 4, to convert lithium sulfate into lithium hydroxide. And at some point later, maybe to do battery grade carbonate, because we've seen it. There's been a shift from high nickel to LFP, and Europe will surely start producing some LFP, but for now, we will not change our strategy to make lithium hydroxide available. Next, please. So what we see here is what we call the hub. We want to be more than just a supplier of lithium hydroxide. We're already working on other topics. I'll show you a slide later. So the hub consists of our production in Bitterfeld and our lab here in Frankfurt. It's a state-of-the-art lab that does R&D, that does process development, process improvement, checks incoming raw materials if they are, let's say, good to be used in our plant. So this is just another, let's say, view of what we intend to do. The first thing will be our own spodumene from Brazil. Then we will have hydroxide from the market. Then we will have, hopefully at some point, we'll encourage and help junior miners globally, but ideally at some point also in Europe, to get local lithium done here out of the ground, and at some point recyclers. Next, please, Amelia. So I'm talking about recycling, and everybody's talking about recycling, and this is good. But if you look at our module, typically 20,000 tons. So 20,000 tons is quite a lot. If you think upstream and look how many tons of batteries that means, you can multiply by 100. So the quantities are coming back to the recyclers very slowly from the market. And on top of that, the life cycle has been prolonged because a second life has been introduced. Until recently, an OEM would say a battery is good for my car 8-9 years, and when it reaches 80%, so you can't load the battery beyond 80%, then it's no longer good for the cars, but it is still good for battery energy storage applications also. Yeah. So recycling, we're talking to recyclers to align our activities. Will it be hydroxide? Will it be carbonate? Will it be sulfate as feedstock? Next, please, Amalia. Yeah, okay, that's what I've just said. Next, please. So AMG Lithium is building the first hub here in Europe. What does it mean for local producers? Security of supply. Material as of today would come from overseas, from Asia, from China, because this is where most of the conversion capacity lies until now. Security of supply, we will have a local supply, we will have a local warehouse here in Bitterfeld, out of which we can supply on short notice. We can do fast local replacement, as we will offer to take out of spec material from the market, even if we haven't produced it. It will be for us like a raw material, and we will upgrade it into battery grade hydroxide for our customers, even if it came from somewhere else. So they don't have to send it back, ship 6 weeks, and it comes back 6 weeks, etc. So that's a big advantage, and reduce qualification efforts, because by then we'll be qualified at the car manufacturers here in Europe and globally. I've mentioned recycled materials. We will close the loop at some point, but this is going to take some time. We're already talking with them to align activities. Next one, please. Yes, and the Hub Intelligence Center, we have a state-of-the-art lab here in the industrial site in Höchst, and we have all the equipment we need. We have it also duplicated at the production site so that we can analyze there. We have a highly experienced team because most of us have had have already spent a lot of time developing these projects at other big lithium players. I myself started in '97 at what was then Chemetall, became Rockwood, later Albemarle, and we have a lot of colleagues who have a similar path. And we also have a very good R&D team who's already working on the next generation products for all solid state batteries. Next one, please, Amalia. So our next project will be lithium sulfide. Lithium sulfide is a building block, is a precursor for a lot of more complex sulfidic lithium materials for the all solid state batteries. We are in the engineering phase, and will hopefully soon build our pilot plant to make first larger quantities available here in Europe. Next one. Well, all of this would have not been possible without the backing of our mother company, the AMG Group, Advanced Metallurgical Group, which fully supports financially and also technically this project. AMG is already has been active in this field of raw materials for quite some time. Has 3,600 employees, a turnover of 1.6 billion last year. We also have a lot of engineers on board, because one of the sister companies is specialized on building high vacuum, high temperature furnaces to produce special alloys, very light alloys, typically for the Airbus industry, also contributing to reducing the CO2 emissions. Next, please. Yeah, what we see next, I mean, we've been talking about critical materials for 2 years now, more than before. They were neglected before. Now we have recognized that they are critical and that we will need them, that we are too dependent. So what you see here on the left, in the left circles, is what the US has designed as critical raw materials. On the right side, it's the European list. This list is growing and likely to further grow. All elements in blue and lithium are elements where AMG has activities. For example, AMG is the biggest recycler of vanadium from spent catalyst ash. Next one. Yes, and the CRMA, a lot of people mix it up a little bit with IRA and think it's the European, let's say, answer to the IRA. It's very different. It's a document that is setting some rules and some thresholds. And one of these thresholds, for example, we're talking about 2030, when we will be producing some 100,000 tons, maybe mid of the 30s. So one of the targets is to mine 10% of the EU's demand locally. Now, we are hearing it all the time. The projects are taking time to come to life. In Europe, there's resistance, there's this NIMBY mentality, etc. But we're talking with local mines here, hopefully bring some of them online soon. I must add here, we will never be able to be completely dependent, because I hear first and I read first articles that Europe will be self-sufficient. If we took all the projects in Europe that are really on the radar, and if they were all to go on stream, let's say in the next 5-6 years, we could maybe produce locally 180,000 tons of LCEs. And if we add maybe another 15% out of recycling, with the time it's going to be more, but we're talking 2030, you may end somewhere at 220, 230,000 tons. We will need more than 500,000 tons. So whatever we do, we will still be depending on other resources. We will not be self-sufficient here. This is an illusion, nice to have, but so with our project here in Bitterfeld, we would be fulfilling 50% of this first target, because we would go on stream with a junior miner, where we would typically talk about 25,000 tons of LCE, which comes to 50% of these 10%. Processing 40% of the strategic raw materials in Europe. With our 100,000 tons up and running, we would be fulfilling 50% of this target in the CRMA. And in terms of recycling, last but not least, the EU wants to make sure that recycled materials make up to 25% of raw materials used. And with each module that we would be dedicating to upgrade, tech grade LCEs from recycling, we would fulfill 16% of this target. Next, please. Yes, and this is the picture. This is where we are today. What you see on the right side is our warehouse. On the left side, the slightly lighter building is our first module. And left to it, we could add another 4 modules as the market grows, as the demand grows, and as we get hold of additional raw materials. That's it for us. That's where we are right now. I know that we will discuss the market is being challenging, very challenging at the moment, but we will stick to our strategy. We want to move forward with this, and we want to contribute somehow as good as we can to get a degree of autonomy and resilience in Europe. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Andre. Very good insights and updates. Thank you for your cooperation. Up next, Bruce Richardson, CEO of Anson Resources.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so I'm Bruce Richardson. I am the Executive Chairman and also the CEO of Anson Resources. Anson is a listed Australian company operating here in Utah. So what you see in front of you, the picture there is our pilot plant and where we are at the moment. So on the right is our office, and also where we have our laboratory. In the middle there, you can see some sea containers. That's where we're currently processing using a sun resin, a Chinese process, from raw brine right through to final product. Small box to the left of that is Coke, a well-known American company which has entered the DLE space, and the rest of it is supporting infrastructure. So Emil, if you just go to the next slide, please. Yep, and the next one. Okay, so our project is in Utah. It's in the southwest corner of Utah, close to Colorado, something called the Paradox Basin. You can see it there on the image. We have 2 projects, the Paradox and Green River projects. They're about 40 miles apart, about 65 kilometers. So quite a distance, a very large reservoir of brine, which we have identified over a period of 7 years. So about 56 billion tons of brine is located there. The unique thing about this project that it's under pressure. The brine is under pressure. The brine containing lithium is under pressure, and it pushes the brine to the surface. that has a very big impact on costs. It also has a very big impact on carbon emissions. It makes the project very ESG friendly. But the other important point here that I'm going to stress through the presentation is that we're made in the USA, and that equals a price premium. And that's been emerging over the past few months. Since the IRA was introduced here, there's been diversion between the two prices, the Chinese or the Asian price, and what we are now seeing in the United States, and that gives us a commercial advantage. Currently, it's about 19%. I'll show that on a graph soon, and that's a direct result of US government policies. The pressurized brine and the existing infrastructure equals low cost. So in this part of the world, there's been a lot of activity previously for mining. So there's road and rail and power, the things that you don't get in the Pilbara, in my home country, where there's no infrastructure whatsoever. All that means less capex to build the project, enabling us to get into production faster. This brine is, as I said, 56 billion tonnes, containing a very large amount of LCE, and that gives us significant upside. So we already have 2 locations where we intend to extract the brine and from that the lithium, but there is opportunity to increase production significantly. So we're not limited by resource, we're limited by capital. The second project, Green River, has seen some rapid development there, and I'll explain why that is. And that brings us very quickly into the market. Next, please, Amelia. We are seeing some green shoots there in the lithium market as consumption of electric vehicles. The retail level has increased significantly in China, seeing some pickup there. We also see some of the higher cost producers in China going out of the market, lepidolite producers coming out, and we think their operating cost is around 13,000. We see some cuts by some of the majors, and we think we all know about that. And the lithium price is starting to see some push up there over the past couple of weeks. LFP is becoming more popular in the United States because it produces a lower cost battery. Previously, we would talk to offtake partners, battery manufacturers from the US, who would tell us that they weren't interested in lithium carbonate, but now we're seeing more interest in that, and that's because the chemistries are changing towards a lower cost LFP battery. Goldman Sachs announcing that they can see the bottom of the market and things are improving, and that's really important to us as far as the future is concerned. Next, please, Amelia. So the price premium. What we've done is we've used fast markets over the past few months to track the lithium carbonate spot price. And you can see back in April when they first started tracking that the increases between the two prices the divergence between the two prices is increasing. So when we did this graph a few weeks ago, it was about 18%. Now it's about 19%. So that provides some advantage. So it gives us a higher price. So when you're investing in a project, you're looking for a higher price and you're looking for a lower cost. And this gives us the higher price. That's caused by government policies. Next, please. The government policies have broken the supply chain. And this is what this image is identifying. So the orange lines there are the pre-IRA supply chain, and the green is post. We found when in a visit to Japan, Korea last year that the producers there of the precursor and cathode materials were looking to find alternative sources of supply other than Australia, Chile, Argentina. That's because of the IRA policy, that all the conversion plants are in China, and the US government decided they did not want to receive precursor and cathode materials, batteries, etc., from China, and they looked to encourage Asian manufacturers to move into the United States and use local materials. So you can see here in the center, Japanese, Korean battery companies investing $88 billion in the United States, so a significant number of new projects here. They also, to the right of that, you'll see that they put on an additional tariff. So most favored nation is 2.5% added on 25%, so almost 30% tariff. And that's Evercore did this calculation of ultimately what the price difference might be between China and the US. As you can see, at $12,000 in China, it might be something like US lithium price of 22. Currently, we all know there's an election going on in the United States. We have one of the candidates indicating that he would increase the US tariff up to maybe 100%. I think I heard him say the other day, he might even go higher than that. And that would have an even bigger impact upon the price difference between the Asian price and the US price. Yes, next, please. Europe, we also hear things are happening over there, and I think previous speaker spoke about that. The digital battery passport is something they're looking at. Lower emission carbonate is what they're looking to find, as you see at the bottom right-hand side there. Spodumene 24.2 compared to something like 7.3 in carbon intensity. That gives brine producers, particularly South America, opportunity to, market opportunity there with meeting specifications, where the Chinese converted lithium spodumene from Australia would have more difficulty in meeting these new policies or new standards that the European Union is considering introducing in 2027. Next, please. So we had a look at the supply chain. We just had some interesting information provided there by Federico. But this is one of the benchmark graphs, which shows that currently in the sort of best case, worst case scenario, if all the new projects come on stream, which is still a question mark, then there would be significant supply to meet demand. The difference here between this slide and the next one, please, Amelia, is that we then looked at the availability of available compliant lithium. So two different things. So while Australia might have lithium and compliant lithium available, not necessarily could be supplied into the US market. Same with South America, and that's due to existing contractual arrangements, investments from China and Australian companies, etc. And this makes the graph look a lot worse for US battery manufacturers, where there'll be a shortage of demand right through in all scenarios. So somewhere in between is probably where it's going to land, and we're very excited about our project being able to meet the shortfall that we can see in this graph. Next, please. So just on the project itself, we have been working since 2017 on this project, or these projects. The first one is the Paradox project. I'm showing here a map. The magenta circles where the indicated resource is. I won't go too much in geology, but that means it's pretty certain it's there. Orange also been identified, and the yellow area is exploration targets. So what we have in those magenta and orange circles is around about 1.5 million tonnes. Currently, the project is back working away on additional drilling to increase that tonnage with 2 additional wells to be re-entered. So how we do this is we re-enter old wells and we sample in them to identify lithium. As you can see on here, there's some black dots. The black dots are oil wells. So the oil wells are what we re-enter, and that's important to us that we are able to enter those. And just recently, the Bureau of Land Management approved our next drilling program. Next, please. That's our JORC resource. You'll see at the bottom there, total resource, and if we go to Li2 or CO3, 1.5 million tonnes, just verifying that we actually have made that discovery at Paradox. Next, please. We did back in September 22 for the Paradox, we did a DFS with a company called Worley and Sunresin process from China. You can see some of the important numbers here are CapEx at around about $500 million. That was for a 10,000 tonne per annum, in this case 13,000 tonne per annum plant, and a C1 OPEX of around 4,368. And you can see on the graph below where we land as far as peers are concerned. At the bottom end of the second quartile, to the left of us are mostly South American brine producers. So from a cost point of view or an operating point of view, we are also at well positioned. Next, please. What we found, though, as we're doing the Paradox project, that the brine continued. The reservoir we kept discovering more of it. The black dots again are the oil wells. You can see how they continue from the Paradox up towards the northwest. And as we added on additional tenements and did additional work, we found the brine continued to a point where we decided to look as far afield as we can. So the outline there, the blue outline there, is the Paradox Basin. So we put all of those black dots into a model. We gathered all of the drilling data that had been accumulated from those drilling programs. We identified that there was 56 billion tons of brine in the red circle there, and that led us on to the second project, that Green River. What we did this time was, rather than focus on a resource, we focused on how we're going to produce, looking for infrastructure that is already in place. Also private land. So in this part of the United States, private land is like hen's teeth. It's very difficult to find. And we found a location at Green River where we're able to produce. We purchased the land there, and therefore not requiring any federal government approval for the development of the project. We have only a state government approval, which is a lot more simple and can be moved forward in a short period. Next, please. And this is Green River. So Green River, we purchased some land. That's the dark blue outlined area, and right next to the river. So our process for DLE, direct lithium extraction, does use water, and we needed to have access to water. So both projects have access. One has access through the Colorado River. This is the Green River, which is a tributary to the Colorado. And we're able to take water from the river there and use it in our process. Very important aspect of the project. You'll also see there that the infrastructure that we're looking for. So to the bottom of this image, you see the I-70 that goes all the way to New York from Utah. You see to the north, there's a train line. The train line goes right across the US as well, both east and west, north and south. In Green River, in the top left corner there, you'll see that's the town of Green River, population 900 people. That provides us with the workforce. It also provides us with a couple of sidings there where we can load and unload and load, depending on what we're doing, the equipment that we need to build the project, etc. You also see the energy there. So you see a couple of power lines going through there. We actually have, there's two power lines. There's a 138 kVA line, which runs through the property. There's also a 345 kVA line, which is to the south of the project. So a lot of electricity available. Gas pipeline was introduced last year by the Utah government's policy of bringing low-cost energy to rural communities. This area is brownfields. It was previously used by Union Carbide to enrich uranium. You can see there's an odd shape in the middle of our purchased land. That's where they did that. They also extracted water from the river. So with the land came water rights. And all that is very important in this process. We have two locations. You can see option A and option B. The reason we have two is they're in different counties. So the county to the south, Grand County, is more focused on the tourism industry, developing that, and Emery more focused on industry, particularly mining. They have coal mines, etc. here in this county. And we're looking at both options. At the moment, we think the option B is where we would locate our production plant. Okay, next, please. So we've moved on then to developing out the opportunity there at Green River. Again, the circle showing indicated and inferred JORC resource. Right, the dot in the middle of the map there on the top circle is the location of the well that we've already entered or already drilled. We actually have drilled a new well there down to about 11,000 feet. And that is on the property on our own land, the land we purchased there, about 147 acres we have there. Around there, you see the green outline is the state government's owned land, and we have the right to extract the lithium from that area as well. So we have to the south some BLM ground. Green area is something we just added on the past couple of months. So the project continues to develop and get bigger and looking more prospective. Next, please. This is the timeline. You can see it's been moving very quickly since the purchase of the land in 2023. We've been very active in doing many things and different aspects of the development of the project, using the experience we gained from the Paradox project. So in February this year, we have approvals granted for the drilling. So that's quite unusual for the United States. BLM, we had some wells which took 3.5 years to approve. In this case, it was about 4 or 5 months. So from purchase to application to approval in February, and quickly moved on to drilling that project in April, and then signed up some agreements with LG Energy Solutions, an offtake agreement. We received approval from the state government for brine extraction. Coke came on site in June. And then we started that pilot plant up there in July, and now currently operating. And a few more months, we expect to have that test work completed. We also have received another approval from the government, the Utah government, for the disposal of our waste brine. So the brine coming up has been approved. The waste brine going back down has been approved. There's 2 significant approvals that we received. Exim Bank last month received a lot of interest from them for funding the project. As I said, we're not limited by resource, but limited by capital, and that's an important step forward for us. And I've already mentioned the green outlined area on the previous map, where the state government provided us with a lease to extract the brine from underneath the area which they administer. Thank you. Next. So just in sort of summary, 10,000 tonnes per annum is what we're aiming for. Major permits in place. I've outlined that. Green River ESG credentials. Due to the nature of the brine being under pressure, which is very unusual, we save a lot of money on not having to pump. We also save a lot of CO2. We've been very careful and attentive when selecting the site for both projects and the work we do there, particularly at Green River. We're using a brownfields location, not causing any new disturbance in either project. So we're a low-cost domestic supply. That's due to the existing infrastructure. So we have a price premium, but we also have a low-cost opportunity. So we have world-class partners, including Coke, who we're working with at the moment, and LG Energy Solutions, and the offtake there. And we have very good prospects of getting this project in production in the next few years. Next, please. So the things to finish, we do have a definitive agreement with LG. We're turning that into we do have a binding MOU with LG. We're turning that into a definitive agreement. We're talking to additional offtake partners. There are 2 approvals that we're still to get, which we consider to be major. First one is the large-scale mining operation license. We're in the process of finalizing the submission there. That'll go in. We don't think that's problematic, as it's just about procedure and the mining process rather than anything to do with impacts. And the other is the water extraction license, which we're also in the process of applying for. So we already have the water right, but we are looking to finalize that into what type of pump house and how it's taken out of the water is taken out of the river and then piped to the location of the plant. JORC resource expansion, we expect that to be completed, like the other 2 items above, by the end of the year, to give us a larger resource there at Green River. And then we'll go and do an engineering study to provide similar information or data that we can publish through the ASX on things like OPEX, CAPEX, etc. Next, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce, for that. Andre, I'll ask you to turn the camera on for a second. We have some questions coming in, and I think it's there's a bit of everything for the US, European markets as well. Well, first of all, I think congratulations are in order for both. I think in current market conditions, I mean, to achieve such important milestones for both Anson Resources and IMG during this year, it sends a very strong message. Bruce, if you don't mind, there are questions for you as well, so you can keep your camera on as well. I know this live version is it's different, but well, after the pandemic, we've discovered a new world on the virtual world. I have a question. I think Andre, it's for you. How much lithium could Europe secure locally if it were to see all its project realized?
Yeah, I touched. Can you hear me? Yeah,
Yes.
I touched on it a little bit. If you look at the resources that are known, their reserves, and if they were really all going to go on stream, you could reach maybe 180, 190,000 tons of LCEs. If you add, let's say by 2030, 15% from recycling, hopefully more. But yet, even if it's 2025, you could get 220, 230,000 tons of LCEs secured locally. And we have seen we need anything north of 500,000. So this gap will remain.
Thank you. I think Bruce mentioned this as well. At the moment, it's not a resource problem because resources are there, both in Europe, North America, and elsewhere. But the capital permitting and the delays or times to put a project, particularly in this price environment, that's I think the bottleneck. So that's very good. Thank you, Andre. Bruce, I think this is for you. So how U.S. elections results might impact the development of U.S. Lithium projects?
Yeah, interesting question. As we understand, both parties support the development of electric vehicles, and maybe Donald Trump more oil and gas focused, but he sees a space for electric vehicles as well. So that's important. Second thing is both parties are supportive of manufacturing or bringing back manufacturing to the United States. And the third point is $88 billion already invested by Asian battery manufacturers. That can't be stopped, right? So that provides the demand. So government policies, in our view, won't be changed significantly. There may be some tweaking, sorry, to redefine where the money goes and how it might be spent. But both parties and both candidates are looking for manufacturing in the United States and supply of lithium out of the United States or North America. And that all bodes very well for us.
Thank you. We have a question, Andre. I think this is for you. So you source some of your lithium from your mine in Brazil. How difficult was it logistically and tax?
Well, to be honest, we were lucky to have this project already up and running more or less. So if you were to develop a new one today, it could take more time. But this mine has been up and running since 45. Initially, it served the tin market, later tin and tantalum. And now it's been turned into a multi-mineral. So we are currently processing all the three minerals, tin, tantalum, and spodumene. We've just increased the capacity, but right now we're at a sweet spot. It doesn't make sense if you look at the life of mine and the size of the plant to increase further, because then you reduce the life of mine. So that's where we are right now. We cannot double this site again, but we're looking for further resources there. And there's a lot happening in Brazil at the moment.
Lovely, thank you. And Bruce, there are a couple of questions. I'll try to merge them together. So there's, if you consider the appeal by the environmental group for the water rights to be an issue, and as well, they're asking how much capital have you secured for Anson's Utah projects, and because you mentioned it's one of the main constraints.
Sure. So the water problem is something not unique to the United States, worldwide issue that's being considered. So where we are at the moment is the state government has approved our water rights for extraction and disposal, and that doesn't change. There are some environmental groups who have voiced their views there. And that's an issue for the government to work through. So overall, technically, from geological point of view and other points of view, there is no issue with the water. In fact, the water rights we've secured for a long time already, and they're old rights. So we don't see that being a major problem. As far as financing is concerned, or funds concerned, we do have just recently completed a small capital raising, and some of that from existing shareholders to get us over into next year and beyond, into the FID, for final investment decision period, and that's what we're working on at the moment. As you saw in the presentation, we've also have a letter of interest from the Exim Bank, the US Exim Bank, which is a very significant amount of money, 330 million. We've been in discussions with a number of other government, both US and other governments, about funding, as well as banks and strategic partners. So stitching together, the finance stack is not always that easy, and we've been focused on that for some time now, and starting to see some results, particularly pleasing was the Exim letter of interest. So moving along.
Thank you so much. There is a question about what's your view on the current price situation? We do have Adam Anson online. He has some slides to share, if that would be okay. And maybe we can put, after his presentation, some final remarks on prices, if that works.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Thanks, Federico, and thanks, Bruce and Andre. I enjoyed your presentations and your answers. So yeah, I'm Adam Meganson. I'm a senior analyst in the price team at Benchmark, and I thought I'd do a quick analysis of where we are with prices at the moment. Here you can see our lithium carbonate prices so far this year on a CIF Europe basis. You can see that they've been sliding fairly consistently throughout the year, and on the next slide, I'll explain why. So we've seen prices sliding because EV sales outside of China have fallen below outsized expectations. Within China, we've had multiple record-breaking months for both EV sales and production this year. Elsewhere, there have been some bumps along the road. I won't get into all the reasons for those, but some of them include kind of a lack of the more affordable models that might tempt consumers, and charging infrastructure concerns amongst them too, which have led them to lurch a bit back to plug-in hybrids and hybrid models. Additionally, chemical volumes delivered under existing contracts have proven enough to satisfy the majority of buyers' demand so far this year. And this means that they haven't had that pressure to procure additional material on the spot market. As that pressure reduces and spot market prices begin to tick down, since the majority of contracts now reference the spot market with a lag mechanism, that means that those contracts fall as well in terms of price. We've also seen macroeconomic headwinds developing in China. So you may wonder why do we keep referencing China here if I'm analyzing CIF Europe prices, but China remains the bellwether of global lithium prices. Price trends unfold in China first and tend to ripple out into other global markets with a lag. And more recently, we've seen a stimulus package announced by the Chinese government in order to stimulate demand and also help boost the stock market there. However, the fiscal element of that was seen as disappointing by some market participants, and it has not been very effective in propping up prices for lithium. Also, chemicals producers have shown limited price discipline over this period. So that's really what allows prices to fall, is those producers accepting decreasing prices over time. How does this compare with lithium hydroxide prices? Well, on the next slide, you'll see that lithium hydroxide prices have had a very similar journey over the course of the year so far. And in fact, on the slide after, you'll see that I've charted the difference between the two. So yeah, here you go. You can see that for brief periods, hydroxide has traded at a small premium to carbonate. But there have also been some periods where the opposite has been true, like right now. But these premiums or discounts are really quite slim when you compare them to historical averages. So if you cast your mind back 5 years, as the next slide will do, you'll see that prices are at quite a similar level to where they are today for carbonate, a little bit lower than they are today. But when I overlay hydroxide prices on top of that, you'll see that in the next slide, you'll see that price premium is quite consistent and definitely larger than at the moment. So why have we seen this hydroxide price premium that used to be quite consistent shrink to today? Next slide, please. So the typical link between, or historical link between hydroxide and carbonate prices has been weakened by spodumene flow sheets that skip the carbonate step. So previously that price premium reflected the processing cost to convert from carbonate to hydroxide. But now that link is not as strong due to the spodumene route to hydroxide. Also, the scale of demand from LFP cathode producers has expanded. This year, we've seen impressive increases in LFP cathode demand, especially driven by China, but elsewhere too. And LFP favors carbonate inputs. And next. As a follow-on to this, we've also seen that production lines, especially in China, have been more flexible, being able to switch between hydroxide and carbonate. So we've seen converters switch from hydroxide to producing carbonate, and that's meant that they've been able to accommodate increased demand, and it hasn't been that price premium. And lastly, we have seen that margins have tightened for producers across the supply chain. The majority of non-integrated producers that are lower down the cost curve and integrated producers are still eking out a profit. But the reason that they're willing to continue to produce as their margins are tightened are really just to protect that market share. They don't want to be seen to be the first to drop out the market, as it indicates that they are a higher cost producer. But again, accepting decreasing prices is what has allowed prices to fall gradually throughout the year so far. So that concludes my section. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Adam. Yes, just to a final remark, Andre, you wanted to mention something?
Yes, I think, I mean, historically, it's always been carbonate over hydroxide because there were more application using carbonate rather than hydroxide. And the fact that all of a sudden carbonate and hydroxide was typically more expensive, the fact that carbonate overtook is because of the LFP demand. But what people sometimes forget, you can also use lithium hydroxide to produce LFP. And there are users out there starting with these processes. And so the initial reason for the LFP to use carbonate was pricing. And now if we're going to see this trend continue, that lithium hydroxide and carbonate remain in the same, let's say, range, we may again see that the demand for hydroxide could increase. But there's more capacity to produce them.
For sure, we've seen some early developments with cathode producers looking to introduce optionality in their production. So being able to use either a carbonate or a hydroxide feedstock for their line, just to be able to benefit from whichever one happens to be cheaper in the market at that time. I wouldn't say it's widespread yet, but we have heard those kind of first forays.
It's an ever-evolving market, and for sure things will rapidly evolve as well. I wanted, considering the time, I wanted to thank you so much, Bruce, Andre, for your presentations, and Adam. we'll be putting our ears on the ground to waiting for more announcements as the ones you recently announced on your websites. Congratulations again, and thank you so much for participating, and thank you as well for the people that joined in.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.